Right now, somewhere near you, there is a little shaker of salt. It sits on a table, ignored, cheaper than almost anything you own. You shake it onto your fries without a second thought, and then you forget it ever existed. But hold that white grain up to the light for a moment, because for almost all of human history, the substance in that shaker was treasure. It was guarded by soldiers, taxed by kings, carried across deserts, and fought over in real wars. How did the cheapest thing in your kitchen become one of the most valuable things on earth, and then fall all the way back down? That story is older than money, and it explains more about the world than you'd ever guess. Here is the strange truth. Your body cannot live without salt. Not for a few days, not at all. Salt holds water inside you. It fires the signals in your nerves. It keeps your heart beating in rhythm. Lose too much, and you die. Quietly, completely. For most animals, this is fine. They get salt from the meat and blood they eat. But the moment humans started farming grain and vegetables, that easy supply vanished. A diet of bread and beans is a diet starved of salt. So people had to find it, mine it, boil it out of the sea. And there was a second problem, even bigger than the first. Before refrigerators, salt was the only thing standing between you and starvation in winter. Pack a fish in salt, and it keeps for months. Rub it into pork, and you have food when the snow comes. So think about what that means. Salt wasn't seasoning. Salt was survival itself. And anything everyone needs to survive, and that only a few places can produce, becomes something close to gold. We are not guessing here. The record is everywhere. Start in ancient Rome. A Roman writer named Pliny the Elder, a real man who died in the eruption of Vesuvius in 79 AD, wrote a giant encyclopedia of the known world. In it, he stopped to say something simple: that a civilized life was impossible without salt. The Romans took it that seriously. They built a road for it. It still exists on the map today. The Via Salaria, the Salt Road, carved across Italy to carry salt from the coast inland. And here is a word you use all the time: salary. The money you earn. It comes from the Latin word salarium, which is rooted in sal, the Latin word for salt. Now, historians argue about whether Roman soldiers were literally handed bags of salt as pay. Probably not. But the connection is real and undeniable. The word for your paycheck grew out of the word for salt. That alone tells you how precious it was. Now jump south, across the Sahara Desert. For centuries, caravans of camels crossed that ocean of sand carrying two cargoes in opposite directions. Gold came up from the kingdoms of West Africa, and salt came down from mines deep in the desert, at a place called Tagaza, where the buildings were literally cut from blocks of salt. In the markets of the Mali Empire, these two things, gold and salt, were sometimes traded by weight, one for the other. Salt for gold, pinch for pinch. Stop and let that land. There were places on this planet where salt was, quite simply, money. Picture yourself there. You are a trader, somewhere south of the desert, 600 years ago. The caravan arrives after weeks in the heat. The camels kneel, and the men begin unloading slabs, flat, heavy plates of gray-white salt, each one the size of a tabletop. A crowd gathers, not because salt is exciting to look at, because everyone here knows what it's worth. You watch a man trade a small heap of gold dust for two of those slabs. He doesn't flinch. Gold is pretty. Gold is status. But salt? Salt means his family eats through the dry season. Salt means his meat won't rot. Salt is the difference between a full winter and an empty grave. In that market, the gold is the luxury. The salt is the necessity. And necessities always win. So here's the twist that catches everyone off guard. Because salt was so valuable, rulers realized something. They didn't need to conquer their people, they just needed to control the salt. In France, the kings did exactly that. They created a tax on salt called the gabelle, and it was brutal. Every person above a certain age was forced by law to buy a fixed amount of salt every year, and to buy it only from the king at the king's price. You could not opt out of being alive, so you could not opt out of needing salt, so you could not escape the tax. People hated the gabelle so much that smuggling salt became one of the great underground crimes of France. Thousands were jailed or sent to the galleys for it. And that fury, that quiet, daily rage over salt, was one of the many grievances that helped boil over into the French Revolution. A tax on a seasoning helped topple a monarchy. Does that sound impossible? It happened. And it happened again. On the other side of the world. In 1930, a man named Mohandas Gandhi looked at the British Empire ruling India and at the law that made it illegal for Indians to make their own salt, forcing them to buy taxed British salt instead. So he walked, for 24 days, more than 200 miles, to the sea. And when he reached the shore, he bent down and picked up a lump of natural salt from the mud. That was the crime. That was the whole act of defiance. It became one of the most famous protests in human history. Salt, again, at the center of a fight for freedom. So how did the treasure of empires end up costing almost nothing? The answer is industry. In the 1800s, people learned to drill deep wells, pump out underground brine, and mine vast salt deposits with machines. They could suddenly produce mountains of the stuff, cheaply, anywhere. And the moment something rare becomes abundant, its price collapses. The thing soldiers were paid in, the thing kings taxed, the thing prophets marched for, it became the cheapest item in the shop. That is the strange life of salt. It didn't get less important. Your body still needs it exactly as much as a Roman's did. The chemistry hasn't changed at all. What changed is that we got good at making it. And the better we got, the more we forgot. So now it sits in a shaker. Invisible. Taken for granted. The most ordinary thing in the world. So the next time you reach for that little shaker on the table, pause for just 1 second. You are holding something people once crossed deserts for. Something kings built roads to move and taxes to seize. Something men were jailed for and walked 200 miles to touch. The same white grains. The exact same chemistry. The only thing that changed is you, and how easily you forget what you're really holding.